Hugh Munro was born October 3, 1936, the son of Louis and Dorothy Munro. He grew up in several small rural towns in Manitoba and settled in Oak Bluff in his teenage years. Throughout his life, he always had a competitive spirit.
You know, him and his friend, I remember one story where his friend was they were racing one of these big, these big trucks, and all of a sudden, he was beating my dad, and next thing he looked, he's in his mirror, and there's my dad coming down in the ditch, trying to pass him on the ditch. So again, that wouldn't be very much appreciated today, but in those days, it was like he was so competitive, and he was going to win no matter what it took to get him there, right? So, and he worked at the local garage station, and he liked fast cars and doing all things that he likely shouldn't have done, but he had lots of fun in those days too, I think, with a lot of good friends.
In 1959, the same year his daughter was born, he started Hugh Munro Construction with just one machine.
So as I was a little girl, anytime he bought a low bed or a half-ton truck or a machine, let's put the child on there so we can make sure that we get both in and, get the picture. So he tricked me a lot because we used to live on Cloutier Drive, and that's where a lot of families used to come out in toboggan. And, you'd see, and I go, Dad, can't you take me tobogganing? And he'd go, well, he says, you're more special in going up and down the hill. Do you look at those kids, they got to walk up and down the hill. He says, I'll tie you behind my Ford on a toboggan, and we'll go down Cloutier Drive and just hang on, right? So I thought, oh, I'm so special, until one day a dog took after me. And he didn't know whether to stop. He said, if I stopped, the dog would have mauled you and eaten you. Or he said, I just put the pedal to the metal and took off, and this poor kid's hanging on for dear life. And it only was later on that I realized it wasn't about me walking up and down the hill. He didn't want to walk up and down the hill. So he was very inventive of trying to make what was fun, right?
Hugh built his business up slowly. In 1979, he incorporated and expanded his business the following year with the purchase of a crushing operation. That allowed him to expand into northwestern Ontario and northern Manitoba.
Some of my earliest memories of being with my dad and hanging out with him going to work was, we actually had workers that we would put up in the hotels. They lived on Main Street, and we would pick them up to go to a job. And it really taught me, it gave me a background of what really humanity is, and seeing both sides of the tracks and seeing how people had nothing and worked hard. And how when I went to school with some of my friends that, their fathers were doctors and lawyers, and they've never really been exposed to that. So I think that sort of gave me a well-roundedness to know that, first of all, you can fit in anywhere, and you actually appreciate, because some of those people that worked for us in those days, they were very hard workers and they had a heart of gold. They'd do anything for you. So it was a big lesson for me to see that, and my dad, going and making sure he could get a staff and never judge people, right? It was always who could do the work. If they were good at what they did, they were on the board, right? And, we always talk about people that have a certain affinity and talent. And my dad, could walk out on a job and know what he was making with how much dirt he was moving and the productivity. He felt comfortable in his own skin about it, and if there wasn't something that he didn't know, he asked or he learned, and he was just genuine about really wanting to learn.
He always gave everyone a chance. It didn't matter who you were worth something to him. And the harder you worked, the more time he had for you, the more he would teach you, tell you things, show you things. And he was very good that way. As long as you put forth an effort and were honest, he'd help you to no end.
You worked for Huey, and you were a good worker, and you got an opportunity to buy a machine, and I think Huey even financed some of these guys and get them going and let them operate that machine on Huey's job. And that gave everybody a great boost up, when you're down, when you only have a start. Everybody needs a start. And I think he helped a lot of people and started them out.
I think what made him successful is I think he really enjoyed having success with other people. He relied so much on his employees, which he really considered his family. He taught me a very good lesson one day because, when I started to operate on machines and packers, as every construction kid does, and then, you think all of a sudden, okay, well, I'm the boss's daughter. I'm a little more important than the rest of them. And I remember, waiting for him all day to come and rescue because it was hot as hell out on the machine. And waited for him all day, and he come in his half-ton and looked at me and waved and drove away. And, so I was mad that night at him when he come to pick me up at the end of the day, and he said, hey, these boys made this company right now, not you, so you respect them.
He was very fair. His handshake was gold. His word was gold. If he told you he was going to do something, it happened. And he was well respected in the industry and in the province. If you said you worked for Hugh Munro, a lot of people would look up and shake your hand. Good to know you.
Hugh Munro must be given credit for being a pioneer when it came to business succession. He was a bit of a maverick when he recognized aptitude and interest and then trusted and trained a talented young woman to become his business successor. It was the right call. It's worked out very well, and times are changing. But there can be no question that Hugh Munro was far ahead of his time.
Hugh had an eye for opportunity. In the 90s, during hard economic times, Hugh had the foresight to divert his resources to installing fiber optic and voice cabling for MTS projects. People that knew Hugh best remember him for other reasons.
I think most people would say, Huey was a fun guy. He was what he was. There was no pretense about him. My dad was a big 6 foot, 280-pound guy that, was rough and tough and, on construction and could work really hard, and yet he'd lay down with his daughter at night and cry at Lassie. There wasn't any difference of what people saw. He was what he was. There's no premise of not being genuine.
Hugh Munro passed away July 28, 2008, but what he left behind is as strong as ever.
Well, he's got a wonderful company here. Got a great gal that's running the show. That's a wonderful thing to have. That's the best legacy any man ever has, is to have a child that takes off and makes it even better. Just well known, well respected, and well liked. And that's all you live for in life, is to have that kind of relationship with people.
What did he leave behind? Just the Hugh Munro company and his daughter. His daughter is very much like him. More and more every day.
He's always in my head every day. Why are you doing that? Why would you? I'm sure that's what he's saying a lot of times. But then, I think he looks at the core of, the place is still going, we've grown, and the honor that I hope that I can pass on to the employees that he taught me is still there.